This week's episode of Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico is brought to you by Baby Loves Tacos and its two locations in Pittsburgh, PA. The original hot spot right smack in the middle of Little Italy on Liberty Avenue in Bloomfield, and their newer location in Millvale right over the 40th Street Bridge. Zach, Kat, Kaz, John, Ben, and those groovy cats serve up the best Mexican-style food this side of the Texas border. Huge burritos, tasty bowls, finest tacos around. Baby Loves Tacos will fill you up and make you smile. So when in Pittsburgh, head over to Baby Loves Tacos. Tell them Twisted Rico sent you. Baby Loves Tacos, where everybody eats. Before we bring our very special guest, Doug Carrion, onto the show, let's listen to a track from the brand new Field Day album, Opposite Land. This one is called Waiting for a Miracle. Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo, a little more excited than usual this week. You just heard Waiting for a Miracle from the brand new Field Day album entitled Opposite Land. Now let's please welcome to the show, Doug Carrion.
Greetings, people from the interwebs. What's happening? It's Mr. Doug Carrion from Hermosa Beach, California. How are you? Today is January 6, 2021. We are checking in from Los Angeles. It's a beautiful day. How are you? Where are you going? Are you going to the gym? You coming back from work? What are you up to? You going to take a second to listen to Steve and I talk a little shop? Maybe entertain you a bit? I appreciate you checking in. Steve, I appreciate the call. Let's get into this sucker. What did you have on your mind?
I think I should just let you host the show, actually. I just want That was great. I want to give our audience a little bit of background on you because we have a lot to talk about in case some people don't know you. If they don't know you by now, I don't know where they've been. Doug has played with two of the most important bands in punk rock history, the Descendents and Dag Nasty. He also played in Pale, For Love Not Lisa, a band I really did like, Doggy Style, Cottonmouth Kings, Daddy X, and I'm sure there's more. He's also done some acting and composed some music for films. Mr. Carrion has done it all, basically. And I want to ask you this before we get into it. How in the world have you survived, man, since like March? Because you're out in California, and, you know, it's pretty bad out there. It has been all along. What does your pandemic survival kit entail?
Well, if you mean like the, I guess really the thing is that I'm an early riser guy, so I've stayed very, very busy on the music side of what we're doing, like, you know, what Field Day's doing, writing and music and talking about music and all that stuff, releasing music. So that's kind of kept me pretty focused. And then on the other side, safety first. So there's been a lot of staying at the house. I'm always wearing a mask. I socially distance. I don't really go out that much because it's not really the best time to be doing that. So I've been what you'd call in the bunker. But the great thing is I'm very fortunate in that, like, I can work from home writing and doing, you know, making tracks. And so I kind of have been doing everything rock and roll 80 hours a week, with the exception of no live shows. So kind of like sucky situation, but getting through the best of it. Yeah, getting through it by staying positive, staying home, working, and just kind of doing my thing.
Since I met you, you've been working 80 hours a week, though. You're a hustler, man. There's no doubt about it. Before we get into the Descendents, I want you to just basically lead us up to that point. How did you get from point A, being a young rocker, to you're joining one of the coolest bands in Southern California?
Right. So Descendents, I'm from Hermosa Beach, California. Okay. So I'm from this teeny 1 mile grid, home of Black Flag, The Descendents, Circle Jerks, Pennywise. What's unique is I have a connection to all four of those bands. That's bizarre. It's very strange. How it came about is, as I was going through my, youngish life and listening to a ton of jazz and stuff like that, I started learning a little bit more about punk rock. As I started learning a little bit more about punk rock when I was maybe pretty freaking young, maybe about like 14 or so, I was given an acoustic guitar and started playing and started clunking out Ramones songs, just kept going. Eventually, when I was in high school, I had met Bill and I had met Milo.
Bill Stevenson.
Yeah, yep. So Bill Stevenson and Milo are a couple of grades above me, and I met them through Maricosta. And as I kind of like, moving forward on the clock, like, I don't know, maybe I'm like 19 or so, I was already playing in bands, and Bill was in Black Flag. And he and I kind of met. I was working at this drugstore, which would be think like a CVS, something like a Walgreens.
Okay.
I was working at this drugstore, and he would come in to get tour supplies. And as it turns out, we just kind of connected that way and remained friendly because Hermosa Beach is a very small town. It's a very, very small town. I had seen the Descendents. Descendents were like the local band, one of the local bands that were incredible. So while I was maybe like, I don't know, a sophomore in high school, I would see them play punk shows, and they're freaking phenomenal. So you figure a few years later, by the time I'm out of high school, it was like, wow, running into Bill was amazing because he was already touring internationally with Black Flag. As it turns out, he was starting to slow down his tenure, I guess, with Black Flag, and he was going to reboot the Descendents. Tony, the bass player, didn't have the ability to tour, so Bill was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to reach out to Doug. And that kind of started it.
Wow, this is funny because you and I are connected in so many ways. When I moved to California in 1984, I lived right on the Lawndale, Hermosa, Redondo, where the Del Amo Mall was, around that area. So I was in Hermosa Beach all the time, and the reason I moved there is because I wanted to get a job at either Enigma or SST, and it ended up being Enigma Records. And the way that I got involved with the Descendents is, this is a really good story. One day, one of the owners of the company, Wes Hine, calls me. He said, Steve, this guy named Mike's going to come in. He's going to come in. I'm going to give you a yellow line piece of paper, and you guys are going to make a deal. He doesn't want to do a contract. He just wants to do a deal. It's for the Descendents Enjoy record. So I'm like, this is interesting. Okay. So wow. I'm sitting there, and Mike's here. All of a sudden, I look up, and it's Mike Watt. And I'm like, holy shit, you're Mike Watt. Because I'd already seen the Minutemen a few times. And we did that deal. We signed the piece of paper, and that's how we ended up distributing the Enjoy record, which, by the way, is still one of my all-time favorite records. You know, you guys did that great Beach Boys cover, and When I Get the Time, you know, that song, that album was brilliant. You must have had a blast making that record.
Well, the record itself was recorded twice. So
really,
Descendents, yeah. So Descendents through and through a live band, and through phenomenal songwriters across the board. Bill, great songwriter. Milo, great songwriter. Carl, Stefan, great songwriter. Everybody involved in the organization, from Tony, great songwriter. Frank, great songwriter. Right. All the way back to now, are incredible songwriters. For Enjoy, what happened was, we had written a bunch of songs, and we were shedding the songs, and we went in and we recorded it at Radio Tokyo with Richard Andrews. And Radio Tokyo,
legendary place, yeah,
right, in Venice. So Ethan James, who was the guy in Blue Cheer, this is weird. He started his own very small studio on Abbot Kinney. It's small, it was like a house converted into a studio. We went in there, we blasted through the songs, and for whatever reason, Bill, who usually takes charge and is driving the ship production-wise, Bill wasn't really loving I guess you could say, the energy of the tracks. Mm-hmm. And so we went back out on the road and toured those songs, and came back and recorded basic tracks a second time.
I didn't know that.
It's actually recorded twice. So sometimes, again, in the bootleggy world, you sometimes see things called, there's songs called Doug Rides a Skateboard, Ace, right. Songs that you're like, what are these things? They're not on the Enjoy record, but they're from that, a snapshot of that kind of year, of trying to figure out the best way to track those songs. That's kind of it. I mean, again, very spazzy, funny guys. You know what I mean? Very spazzy, funny guys, and that's the scoop. That's how that went down.
That's fantastic. And the story has it that the Descendents went on tour with Dag Nasty, and that's how you met Brian Baker. And that's Brian Baker, who was in Minor Threat and then formed Dag Nasty. Basically, you and Brian hit it off pretty much right away, right?
Right. So I'll go back a little bit to kind of connect the dots. So Descendents were a touring band, and we would usually go out on the road for 4 months at a time.
Right.
You go for a pretty long time. And you're talking about just, you start on one side of the country, you get to the other side of the country, you work your way up toward Vermont, you start with zigzagging across. That's what it was. Long one-night tours, one-nighters, long. We were doing a run, and we were heading to D.C., and it was the first time that I had met Ian, because we were playing the old 930 Club. Fun, great to meet Ian.
Ian Mackay, Discord.
Fantastic, icon, legendary, one of the most honest mofos in the world. He and Jeff, what they do, even to this day, I still get paid from Dag Nasty on a handshake deal. So
wow.
Ian is a freaking ninja, like just the best, like through and through the best. So the second time Descendents go back through and we're playing the 930 Club again, I get to see Brian. And I didn't know the guy had never met him before. I get to see his band Dag Nasty, and he's got Sean. Okay.
Sean Brown.
So you got Sean Brown. You go, great. So the band was cool. It was this very interesting, almost like an extension of where Minor Threat had left off, but the guitars were a little bit more complex. Pretty interesting. Really, really cool. So I meet Brian. He's a very, very nice guy. Again, I'm just being introduced to the guy. How much time can you spend with somebody in one night in a loud bar? You go, whoa. Right. So as it turns out, Descendents are getting ready to go back out and do another run of dates. And this time we're going to be up toward the Buffalo, Canada, Toronto area. And Brian brings out Dave Smalley. So he has his second singer. It's like, okay, Dave is a fantastic guy, fantastic singer, brings Dave's lens and spin on the project. It's great. Okay, nice to meet you, Brian, blah, blah, blah. And I think on that run, we might have done like 7 dates, 8 dates, 10 dates, something like that. Pretty quick. Boom. Now we're into the following summer. Descendents are getting ready to go back out again. And I think Dag Nasty is going to come out for 25 dates, 30 dates, something like that. So Descendents are going to be out for 4 months, and Dag is going to jump on at a certain point and jump off. When they jump on the tour, as Brian rolls up, he's got yet another singer, and it's Peter Cortner. So I was, I guess you could say, in the sweet spot before I even joined the band, where I got to see him play with all 3 singers.
Oh my God.
That's kind of that long Descendents tour was really the time where Brian and I got to know each other and talk shop, and really appreciated what each one had skill set wise. And that kind of is really where like that friendship and collaboration started, was on the road.
I didn't realize that Peter Cortner you saw Peter before you were in the band. I didn't even know that. And I thought I was like such a huge... Dag Nasty's a complicated band. There's been so many changes and things, with the 3 singers. But that's... Go ahead.
What's amazing is that... I'm sorry to cut you off. What's amazing is that out of all of them, Peter is the most... I think the word's going to be stoic. He's the most stoic of the 3, where like Dave, you'd be like, he might sit and be able to talk shop, and he has a little bit more of a maybe like a social gait, as does Sean Brown has more of a social cadence and gait. And it's not to say that Peter doesn't, but Peter is a guy that like is a man of very few words, would prefer to hang out in the van reading, right, as opposed to be like, he's not going to be like, I'm in the club, I'm partying, where's the girls? Like, that's not that guy at all. Like, he's a guy that's like, he's in the van, like reading and illustrating and doodling in a book and writing words, and you'd have to go on the van and knock on the door and be like, dude, we're on in 15 minutes. Like, come on out.
Yeah, there's a big difference between Smalley and Courtney. See, Smalley's an original Boston crew guy, DYS. So I've known Dave for a long time. Him and Peter couldn't be more different. They're really different. But I like what Peter brought to the band. And when you guys made the Wig Out record, this might surprise you, because as we're going to talk about in a little while, I put out a couple Dag Nasty records, but believe it or not, Wig Out at Denko's is my favorite Dag Nasty record. When I heard that record the first time, I was like completely blown away. I thought that the combination of people in the band was like perfect. It was like a perfect combination. So that record is coming out, isn't even out yet. And I get a phone call from Mike Gitter, right? because he knew about Giant Records. I had government issue, and I was getting ready to, I wanted to sign all these bands, and I was trying to figure out who to sign first. And Gitter calls me up, and he tells me, Dag Nasty's looking to move on from Discord Records, and he told me that I should give you a call, and he gave me your number. I was really nervous. In fact, I called Ian up at Discord and I said, I'm going to start talking to Dag Nasty. There's not going to be any issues or anything about this with us. And he's like, no, they want to move on. I'm 100% behind it. I recorded their first 2 records. They want to do something different. And so that's when I called you. And why don't you tell me your perspective of what happened after that?
So I guess, Ian, and I don't say in a negative way, in a positive way, Ian has his own way of doing records. And not to go too far down into the weeds on the mechanics of the record industry, but he's an independent guy with incredibly high ethics, ethics.
Very high.
They're very, they have limited budgets. So he's the first person to tell you, we're not going to take out a full page ad in Village Voice. You're on crack. That's never going to happen. We take out our ads in these magazines, and when you're the featured record, you're in the top spot, and then you move into a certain section on the ad. And keep in mind, you're talking the dinosaur days when there wasn't the internet, and in order to learn about bands, you had to either, especially for underground bands, you had to learn about them through other bands, live shows, fanzines.
Yeah, to put it in perspective for the listeners, we're talking about 86, 87 right now.
Right. So, this is pre-cell phones. This is this is so far back on the clock that, you might, it's what do you mean? How did you learn about bands? You went to the stores and things like that. So Dag Nasty at the time was at a place where we knew how far Discord's arms reached. And it wasn't hey, this sucks, these guys are horrible. It was just, we thought, if there's a way to establish a relationship where we can get more eyes and ears on the project, why not consider it?
Right.
And certainly, when you're talking about independent music, for example, I don't recall Discord ever having a thing where they would send out, let's say, promos. For them, that might be something, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 97% sure
they weren't big into promo. You're right about that.
Ian would have said something to me like, Doug, we make our records cheap enough that if somebody wants to review it, they can just buy it. That's kind of, and I'm not going to trash the guy. He's a rock star.
Yeah.
He's the best, but he just had a very different, he had a different cadence, almost like wisdom, like an Obi-Wan Kenobi approach,
right.
Just very different. Dude, that's not how I do it. And he wasn't he wouldn't point a finger at you saying that you were wrong for wanting those things. He just had his own lane of the way he did it, and that was their way. Yeah. So that's kind of what started the conversations of
moving away.
You move,
yeah.
Even if you want to.
I don't know. I don't know why Gitter. He just heard about Giant Records that I was starting, and he just called me, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I was ecstatic. And then we started talking on the phone every day, and we hammered the deal out. I don't even remember any lawyers ever. I think you told me what you needed, and Dutch East India was the parent company, and I got you guys what you needed. And then this is the funny thing that I remember that I'll never forget. I went out to California. to meet up with you and Brian. We went to La Pinita, everyone's favorite Mexican restaurant that just closed, I heard recently, which is a shame.
Tragic.
And I tell people this story all the time. I go to the place. I don't know if you guys lived together or whose house it was. It was in Manhattan or Hermosa. It was one of those. And we went over there, and I remember Brian saying, "This is what we want our record to sound like," and he put a Smiths record on. And at the same time, I was bewildered and excited because I wasn't about to argue. One thing about me is I never tell bands how to do their music. I can only give them my advice. Even when I was a manager, I just give advice. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just trust these guys. And I trusted you guys, and you came up with the All Ages single. It was You're Mine, All Ages, and Staring at the Rude Boys, the cover. And I think Graylin King, was that his name?
Yes.
What do you recall from, let's go all the way back to when I came out there. Did I remember that correctly?
You are remembering it correctly, but what's amazing is that to, I guess, focus a little bit more attention on that is, I'm not sure if Brian meant the Smiths or if Brian meant how Johnny Marr was playing. So I'm not quite sure that, and I think that we,
he meant the guitar sound. I wasn't clear. He meant the guitar sound. Yeah, he didn't want you to. He didn't want Peter to sing like Morrissey. He was talking about the guitar. You're right. Yes.
In fact, Peter would have hit you with a book if it was like Peter at that time. Peter was very vocal how much he did not like the Smiths. Like he hated that band. But Brian and I, even when we were living in DC, as we were working on Wig Out, we were also following what Johnny Marr was doing on guitar, and
interesting.
This idea of being able to tie one element, which was this almost jangly, damned, picky guitar playing, and I can give you a couple of references, but there's like that just in general. But then having this very, very straight bass line. So the bass line is, let's say, like The Cure or like Joy Division, very straight.
Right.
And the guitar is very picky and ringy, open notes and ringy over the top. And then how Peter's going to lay in his vocal is a little bit more subtle, as opposed to blaring, screaming at the top of the top of your throat. But what's amazing is, if you look at what we turned in for All Ages show,
it wasn't that.
It was not that, brother.
Right.
That sounds more like, I don't know if you want to call it metal, but it sounds more that thing sounds closer to metal than it does closer to Smiths.
I saw in an interview where you said you thought Your Mind was kind of like Poison. It was more like Bon Jovi in my mind. It was
okay.
It was really a hard rock song. I was shocked when I heard it, but I liked it.
Yeah, and that was, it's funny because that initial riff was kind of built out of a Doug bass part that we shedded the first time we met with Scott Garrett. So
who became the drummer after Colin Sears left. Yeah, I'm just filling in the blanks.
So we were kind of like, again, when you're looking ahead and not sure, I'm sure you can remember that at that time there were a lot of bands that were starting to cross over into the thrashier, more metal-y side of things. And I could only assume that we were trying to figure out, is it better for us to, lean on this side of the line or lean on that side of the line? And you're kind of influenced by things, that are coming out at the same time.
Right.
So that's really where we were when the All Ages, the thing that I learned about doing the All Ages show 7-inch was that we ended up spending a certain amount of money that would have blown our full-length budget right out the window. So we did that recording, and when we got to the end, we're satisfied with the results. For my ear, me personally, it was a little bit, I'm not going to say too polished, but maybe one click too close to metal. But the
B-side, though, with All Ages Show and Staring at the Rude Boys, was more punk. So you kind of had one side of the record that was hard rock, but you kind of stuck to the punk roots on the B-side.
Yeah. And one would think that like All Ages Show would have been the lead-off song. Like you would think that's the case. But and I can only say in a gazillion decades later, when we go to a show, people are like, "Hey, play All Ages Show." That's the one they want to hear. So that's just that's just what it is. But that session was a very valuable learning experience because it kind of laid the foundation for what became the Field Day full length, where we opted to go into a slightly smaller studio, but to allow ourselves more time.
When I first heard Field Day, I was like blown away. I mean, I was like, I know that there's people out there that love it and there's some that hate it. But to me, I mean, that record sold, I remember it being over 30,000 copies, and that was only in the first year that it came out. And then the story with Giant, everything just completely dissolved and I split. But that record, we got a lot of press and a lot of good feedback. But some of those punk guys, the old school punk guys, didn't really dig it. But to me, I thought it was a great record. I mean, what's your perception of the record now when you look at it? I mean, we're talking 33 years ago that record came out. That's a fucking long time, man. 33 years ago.
It's a very long time. And here's where I am. I think that was a very bold and ambitious document of songs. Could it have been honed in and a little bit more focused? Possibly. Could it have, keep in mind that you're talking about a time where there's no infrastructure regarding K-Rock wasn't playing punk bands or any of the bigger radio stations. So you're literally off on your own doing what you think, first and foremost, when you, and even to this day, I can say a lot of times it's a little bit selfish at the beginning when I'm writing songs. It's like, hey, I love this one. And Peter, what do you think? Hey, I love this one. And once those boxes are checked and we're having fun and we like it and we're like, oh, this is great. Then you really lose a bit of control once it goes out into the universe. People might love it. People might freaking hate it. You kind of have to throw it out there and see where it goes.
I think a lot of people love it. As the years go by, the record seems to have grown on a lot of people.
It has.
And Trouble Is, which, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Trouble Is, which is the song that we made a 12-inch single of, and we Ed Stasium remixed it, who worked with the Ramones and all these bands. That song was brilliant. I still think to this day when I listen to that song, wow, it had to be a timing thing that song didn't become huger. I think it was just some weird timing. I can't place it.
Yeah. I mean, there's in retrospect, who knows? That was another one of those interesting riffs that kind of built up the thing. Peter is singing in a ridiculously low register, so it was very challenging to reproduce that live. Very, very challenging. Yeah. But, that's one of those things where that also is a very standout track for people. So like I said, it's when you look at the catalog of music that I've been involved in or music that Dag Nasty output while we were working together or songs that Peter and I have worked on and written together. The Field Day record is an incredibly ambitious, like, talk about, like zero, like we're just going to do our own thing. And that was kind of it. It was like, it was an experiment.
Wasn't it great to have a label that let you do that? I'm not patting myself on the back right now.
I think I will give kudos to the label, because the label, I remember you not really. I clearly remember giving you music at the end of the equation. Meaning we had already recorded the record, mastered it, and turned it in. And it took you a second to figure it out. You're like, whoa, hold on a second. Whoa. I remember standing in my kitchen at the beach house and you're like, I don't know, man, this record's, it was a big, gigantic leap from
Wig Out,
from the leap from Can I Say to Wig Out was already a big leap. The leap from frickin' Wig Out to the Field Day giant record was like a jumping off Mount Everest or something. I was like, that was a big, I mean, it's conceivable that the label could have said, dude, you guys, I don't know, you guys need to go re-record this, or you need to go back and do it again. But there were badass songs on there. It was a freaking badass record.
I did not have a knee-jerk reaction. I may have like, wait, let me hear this. But once I heard all the songs on there, and it's just a great, to me, to this day, I had a real good discussion with Al Quint about this, because he's one of the guys that doesn't like it. He's Al Quint, Suburban Voice. And to this day, I defend that record to anyone. Right. I defend it to everyone, okay? Because I think it is a brilliant piece of music, and I don't really care what anyone else thinks. What do you think of that, huh?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. So it's really interesting, and I'm gonna give you like a couple things. For some people, that was their intro record to Dag Nasty.
Yeah, it was.
So there are many people that I meet where that's their jam. Like, that's their jam. And they kind of tolerate Wig Out. They do not like Can I Say. Then you have people that started with Can I Say. They love, that's their jam. They're kind of okay with the Wig Out. And then they're like, I don't know about this Field Day record. So here's my story. Just yesterday, I was speaking with Brian from Battery, and he and I were talking. He has a new band called Be Well.
Okay.
And he had asked me, he's like, Doug, I got to ask you, how much material do you play from the Wig Out record, from the Field Day record? And I was like, and I was just straight up. I'm like, dude, let me tell you something. We can play anything fast from that record, true to form. You close your eyes, you wouldn't even know the band. It's like true to form, spot on. I could play anything from the Wig Out record, fast, true to form, play anything from the Can I Say record, true to form. I said, why do you ask? He's like, dude, Mrs. Tuma's my jam. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I said, anytime you want to come out, anytime you want to come out and sing that one, you just give me the nod and I'll back off and you can grab my mic and freaking rock that shit. So it's amazing.
Todd Morse, I heard your interview that you did with him. He loves the Field Day record too. Todd from H2O. Toby, I'm sorry.
Right, Todd's the brother.
Yeah, Toby Morse. I get the two mixed up sometimes.
Like for him, the Field Day record, like that's his jam.
Yes.
Like, he loves Wig Out.
That's complimentary, man, coming from someone like that.
Yeah. Again, it's something that, it's just something that, one cannot undo. You just have to say like, yep, that's what we turned in. and there it is. It's like Giant was like, woohoo, let's do it. And that's it. Like, there's the record. It made its way out. And I think now, again, there are a lot of people where that's their record. And then there are a lot of people that are like, this is a Frisbee.
It's really funny because when I left Giant, I got hired by Metal Blade, and I ended up hanging out with Brian a lot because he was out in California, and him and I connected. He even thanked me on the Junkyard record, which is kind of funny. He was seeing a girl from Metal Blade, and she said, "Do you know Brian Baker?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Brian Baker." Right. And we ended up hanging out, and Brian, and he kind of felt the same way as I did. It's like, you know what? We did it. It was an experiment. Some people love it. Some people don't like it. It's not the end of the world. The only problem was that the guy that owned Dutch East India was kind of a criminal, and he disappeared off the face of the earth, and nobody knew who the masters were or anything, and it turned into a disaster at that point because that record is not even on Spotify, which is sinful since so many people love it, you know?
Well, you know what's amazing? I'm gonna look at this conversation from 10,000 feet above the earth and say, here we are, 33 freaking years later, talking about that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that has to mean something.
It had to mean something to you, because this is a great segue, because here you were all these years later, and you and Peter get back together, and what's the name of the band? Field Day. But before we get into that, I want to ask you, because I read what Brian said about it in a magazine. I don't have the quote, but he seemed to be supportive of it. But was there ever a point where Brian was almost part of the project with you and Peter?
Well, it's kind of, I'm going to say there is a little bit of a yes to that, but it ended up that I'm going to move all the way back to 2018.
I mean, I know he has Bad Religion, and Bad Religion is his main thing, but he was involved with writing those songs too. I mean, did you guys all write together?
Of course, yeah. We wrote, you write together. People bring in riffs, you jam them out. That's how for some people that don't know, the Wig Out record, Brian had a couple of songs for the Wig Out record, but the lion's share of the Wig Out record was written in Hermosa Beach at the beach house, 2 blocks away from La Pinita. So that, is something where I think sometimes people have a harder time wrapping their head around that. At that time, Dag Nasty was bi-coastal. But to move to where we are now, so in 2018, Brian and I have a conversation, and Peter and I have a conversation, and we're discussing.
Was it your idea? Was it your idea?
I'm going to say it was not my idea. It was the fans' idea. It was the fans' idea. And that's like, that's one of those things where, because I'm a guy that's, relatively available, like you can track me down and email me or whatever. I'm very, user-friendly in that way. Like, I'm approachable. I'm a pretty approachable
guy. Very
approachable. So what happened was I had gotten a fair amount of emails from people and texts, and they asked these questions because, everybody's getting older. And so they're starting to look at their bucket list and be like, dude, I wish I would have seen fill in the blank. So, whatever. I get that. Cool. So Peter and I and Brian started talking about what to do or how to redo that, if we could redo that material, if you could play that material live. And so as we got to the tail end of 2018, it kind of was obvious that Brian was about to go into another Bad Religion cycle. And when you go into a Bad Religion cycle, or for bigger bands, they're a big band, those usually take all of your bandwidth and all of your mind power and time for about 18 months. Yeah. So it's a long...
They're a world... They do world tours, basically. Yeah, it's a
big band. They're a very big band in the rock, underground to above ground commercial radio world. Right. So once that was discovered, like, his thing was like, dude, I'm not sure if I even have the bandwidth or time to be able to do this. That kind of left Peter and I having a conversation, and I had said to Peter, I was like, well, one idea is, and Peter could have told me to freaking jump off a building. And I'd said to him, I was like, one of the things we can do, Peter, if you want, is we could start an offshoot. And Peter freaking loved the idea. And he came right back at me and he said, look, I love the idea of an offshoot. Can we write new songs? And I said, I'm like, dude, I'm a creative guy. I write. You're a creative guy. You write. Of course we can write new songs. So that started the spark that was fan driven on how we were going to kind of start this offshoot of Dag Nasty called Field Day. We broke it into 2 phases, if you will. Phase 1, we were going to go out and do 20, 40 shows in the United States, and we were going to focus on the first 3 records, can I say, Wig Out at Danko's Field Day, and we were going to see, do people like it? Do people hate it? Are they throwing bottles out at us? Do they want to see it? We don't know. So we go out there, there's positive response.
They loved it.
Yeah. Well, there's a
who didn't love it? You know who didn't love it? Me, because your show at Once Ballroom here in Somerville, where I am, got canceled because of the pandemic.
I know. And the thing is like, we're going to make good on it, and we're going to do what we do. Like, we're going to do it. One of the things that, as we were doing, like, you have seen when a band does like, I don't know, a reunion, maybe is the right word. Yeah. They're going to do a reunion, and they're going through playing the songs, and the songs sound a little bit soft, or maybe they're a little bit slower, or the guys aren't able to hit it as passionately or aggressively or whatever. So just so you know, we don't do that. We went into like, all right, if people are expecting us to come in at an 8, we got to come in at an 18. And so we went behind the scenes and really were shedding for probably like 4 months before we did the first show. And there's a slight, I can be honest and say there's a slight trick to it that I copped from the Ramones, which is we play everything 3 to 5% faster. So the band is razor sharp dragon slayers. Like, we play the material true to form. If you close your eyes, it sounds just like the records, the live version, and it's slightly faster in order to...
It was punk rock, man. I saw a lot of the videos.
Fudge.
Very punk rock.
It's on point. So that's kind of where we are. So we did this round of shows, boom, and then it really became time for us to get into the writing aspect. Now, we knew if we just did the first 3 records, it wasn't really going to have a long shelf life. So that's one part. The other thing is that that's not really what Peter and I had set out to do. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to write new songs. We want to work together and write songs, new songs. So when we came to the tail end of 2019, we were doing some shows in Dallas and Austin. We finished up these shows. Field Day was planning on taking a month-long break. So we were going to break from the 15th of December, and then in the 15th of January 2020, we had some shows at the end of the month, but we were going to come back and kind of start rehearsing again and get ready for shows. I didn't take a break. I kind of went right into demos, started writing, looped in Peter. He and I started doing demos back and forth. He lives in Philly. I live in Los Angeles. We use the internet to collaborate and work on things. By the time we got to the last round of shows in February, we were ready to start recording. We started recording again, and we did a 7-inch that came out in June of 2020.
Searching for the Answer, right?
Searching for the Answer, and We Are the Change. Yeah. And it came out, it's called Field Day 2.0, came out on a German label, so it's a German import into the States. And we really, I guess you could say, sent out the first kind of like missile into the universe of like, yes, we love our legacy and we respect our legacy and we play those songs true to form. We freaking love those songs. We wrote them, great. But here we are now. And so that started the new phase of where we are with writing, and being a guy that, Field Day works very hard. I work very hard at what we do. We didn't really stop at the 7-inch. Right as we had turned in the 7-inch, we were already recording our latest release, Opposite Land, which is a 5-song EP that came out on Unity Worldwide, November 27th. It's working its way out there. And that, too, is just what I would call blistering fast melodic punk rock. Just, blistering fast melodic punk rock.
How many different colors vinyl are there? Oh, my God, it's amazing. What is it, like 5 different colors?
I think it's 5 different colors. One of the things is that Unity Worldwide, so we're very much slotted in the record collectors world.
Yeah.
So we do colored vinyl. We try to make things so it's fun. Let's talk about vinyl for a second. Vinyl went away for a long time.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, and it went away for a long time. So when somebody had said to me, "Dude, we're going to do it on vinyl," I kind of scratched my head and I was like, "Really? Like vinyl? Really? Vinyl? Wow." The whole idea is when we do vinyl, we try to make the vinyl be as appealing and striking and captivating as possible. No different than when Black Flag would do those early records and you saw the Pettibone graphics, or all the way over to Cocteau Twins when 4AD would release records and you were, or Joy Division would release records and you were just mesmerized, The Cure, mesmerized by the artwork. Just Dead Kennedys. What is this? What is this?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we committed ourselves to doing was, yes, we were going to deliver fantastic music. That was the whole point. It had to be fun and tick the boxes. But we also wanted to, in a way, give people that are record collectors their money's worth.
Yeah.
So we work.
I love that about you guys. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, don't forget, I did a blue vinyl version of the All Ages Show single. So I've been in a green vinyl of Trouble Is. So I love vinyl.
Yeah. In fact, I was just looking at, just this morning, somebody had sent me a photograph of a green version of the All Ages Show 7-inch, and which is, again, like, they floated out there. That's badass. But back to Field Day. So we work closely with a guy named Simon Tripconey who does phenomenal graphics. And Simon and Peter and I and Sven from the label collectively work on the art, trying to make it as striking and captivating as possible. So we really focus energy on that too, but that's where we are. We fall into this like record collector niche, and I think there's about 5 colors in the first pressing.
That's incredible, man. That is incredible. So listen, we've got a couple of minutes here, and I know the answer to this question already, but I'll ask it. Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to be going back on tour as soon as you can, I assume.
In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that. So here's where we are. For 2021, we're not, as much as I would love to do shows in the United States, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
If it does, badass, count me in. No problem. The band will be there. However, we are 75% of the way there on us doing a run of shows in Germany, Amsterdam, Switzerland, the Netherlands.
That'll be huge for you guys.
November. So
that'll be huge for you guys, definitely.
Yeah. So we are focusing on, if the opportunity presents itself, and that's a gigantic subject, but yes, we want to do shows, and we're going to try to sneak some shows in over in Europe at the tail end of October, early November. If that happens and comes together, then we'll go back again to Europe summer 2022. I know we're talking super long range, but once things clear up in the States, we'll start to kind of continue where we left off, which is hitting some of the bigger cities that we didn't get to hit last time.
Boston.
And then, so we're gonna go back to Boston. We never got to properly do a New York City show. So there are some areas that we kind of need. We didn't get to do Detroit. There's some areas that we kind of need to do, and we're gonna get to it. But it's just. The studio band is moving, a mile a minute. The live band is just on pause, like everybody, beyond everybody's control. We're just riding it out, watching what's going on. We send anybody that's lost a family member or something like that, our hearts go out to them, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a coworker. We're in a weird, wacky time.
Yeah, we are.
I can say for me and for the band, like, we think things will get better in the future, and we are definitely going to keep going. And if everybody could just wear a mask, stay positive, socially distance, do their thing, try to stay healthy, we'll get to the other side of this tragedy and kind of crisis and do shows, and we'll play all ages show, and you guys can come sing it. Come sing it.
It's time to go, but I got to say, Doug Carrion, always one of the most positive people I've ever known in this business. Your vibe is always right on. You're true to your word. You're honest. You work hard, and I can do nothing but wish you, and Peter too, I love you guys, man, and I wish you tremendous success, and I want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, and it was totally my pleasure, 100%, man.
Oh, thanks a million. I appreciate you having me out, sending love right back. Appreciate the call. We're gonna hopefully the next time I see you, we'll be in Boston.
Yeah, we're gonna see each other at a show. I've got to see you guys live. It's been too long. But
for sure.
Take care of yourself, man, out in California, and we'll talk soon, all right?
Okay, brother. Thank you for the call. Be safe.
Take care, Doug.
Okay, peace.
Okay. I knew that if I had Doug Carrion on the show that I could sit back and relax and let him just do most of the talking. So that was really good, because I really sincerely mean that about Doug. He is a hard worker. He's a great musician. And I think the fact that these guys got back together and did this Field Day project, it made me so happy. And I know it made so many people happy, especially young kids that were too young to see the band, Dag Nasty. Just so we're not confused, Brian Baker, Sean Brown, Colin Sears, they're out there now. And they're touring. They're not now, but they were touring as Dag Nasty. So there could be a little confusion. There is still a Dag Nasty. It's just different members. There's been a few different members in the band. So I know how some people could have possibly got confused by that. But Field Day is like the Wig Out, the Field Day album, and now they got this new record. And I'm really happy that Doug did the show. All right. So, as I tell you every week, it's really important that we continue to support all the independent and mom and pop stores. I feel like my list is never long enough, but these are people I know that run places like Baby Loves Tacos in Pittsburgh, and JLS Design in Leicester, in the Moonbeam Cafe in Oakmont, PA, in the Dark Horse Pub right here in Somerville, in the Record Archive in Rochester, New York, Diesel Cafe in Davis Square, Somerville, the Book Lovers Gourmet in Webster, Mass. And I could go on and on. But these people need us right now. It's not getting any better out there, as Doug mentioned. They don't even think they can go on tour until 2022. So we've got a lot of work to do. So please continue to support these fine establishments because they need you more than ever. I want to also thank our engineer, Nick Z, for doing the show here at New Alliance East. We're on a little bit of a run here. We've done several now, and we're going to keep it going. And I want to make a point again this week to thank everyone who contributes on our Patreon account, which is patreon.com/Twisted Rico. For as little as $1 a month, you can support this show. And we need your support. So I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and beg, but I promise you this. We are going to continue to bring amazing guests like Doug Carrion and Jack O'Neill, who was here last week. And wait till you hear this. Next week, we got Tom Lyle, guitarist of Government Issue, one of America's greatest punk bands ever. They're you want to talk great bands that were influential and inspired bands. Government Issue from Washington, D.C. is right at the top of that list. They were right there with Minor Threat and those other D.C. bands. And we also got down the road, I've got a cool new band coming on in February called Bait Bag. It's 3 girls from North Haven Island off the coast of Maine, and they have a serious buzz going. So, I mean, and there's plenty of other people that I'm talking to right now about coming on the show. So we're not going anywhere. Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here, in the words of Freddie Mercury, till we fucking bloody well die. I'm sure of it. I think I got Freddie's quote right there, right from the beginning to the end. So please contact me at twistedrico@gmail.com. Questions, ideas, response, criticism. I've already been told that I say wow, man, and fantastic too much. So I didn't count how many times I said wow, man, or fantastic. Dave Spaz, bass player of the Liars, is the one that told me that. But he's my friend. So he told me not to throw him under the bus, and I just did. So anyways, our Instagram page now is at Blowing Smoke with TR. And there's a Facebook page. And there's also Twitter at Blowing Smoke BS. And, just email me, write me, whatever. I appreciate it. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. Till the next time we say goodbye. And by the way, our theme song is The Charms. So pretty. And you're going to be hearing that in about 2 seconds. And thank you, by the way, to The Charms. 68 shows deep. We're not changing our theme song. Till the next time we say goodbye, keep the rock and roll alive. And yes, we love you, Busy Phillips.